MPs, Charlene, Chen and Cassandra. Welcome to the show!
East versus West now. Went with some of our residents to do this thing called forest bathing. And
Forest bathing.
I sit next to a member of the opposition. From then on, we've been extremely sweet.
So sweet.
And then you made certain comments to say now is the best time to start the family. Would they feel that maybe you didn't understand what was the sentiment on the ground?
Do you regret saying that?
Actually,
Hello everybody, welcome to today's episode. You are seeing a few new faces here with us and I'm going to explain why. So, every 5 years, 4 to 5 years, we have like an election cycle, right? And we see a lot of new people, but because the election period is only about a 2-week span, so we don't really get to fully know everybody. And then there's a big gap before the next one again. So what we are trying to do here is I think we want to take the initiative to invite these new faces onto our show. So you'll see people across parties join us for like different conversations where we really get to know them, not just on a policy level. So today we have with us first-time MPs, Charlene, Chen and Cassandra. Welcome to the show! They are at two opposite ends of Singapore. So one is a Tampines MP and one is for West Coast Jurong West GRC.
West side.
So are we seated like that? The East versus West now? That's true.
I'm an East Side guy. Does where you live have a bearing on where you run for? Will they be so cruel as to put the person that live in Changi to go like Taman Jurong?
Oh my god, I feel like we're about to find out.
So that is a myth that we get to choose where we work. In fact, none of us in Tampines live in Tampines.
No, but if you stay in Bedok, I don't care.
I know someone who is staying on the east side but operates extreme west. I won't say who.
Right.
Maybe if you're elected for second term, then you move.
But actually, Denise, that one quite risky because we know sometimes people shift. So you never know. You could be, serving somewhere very near your place, and then the next term you're like.
Then they should do like the student housing. Then you just change dorms whenever, depending on your term. What was it that got you to say yes to running for the elections?
For me, I've came from a place of gratitude. I lived in the States for quite some time. And when you go abroad, that's when you start appreciating how Singapore is structured, what the system is like. It didn't come without a lot of planning, future-proofing, as well as thoughtful insights into how we design policy. So with that appreciation, I feel that there's a need to sustain that system. We need to keep our politics clean. We need to make sure that we think about the future generations and not just the next election. And it's from that place, I think that, perhaps if I have a perspective that I can share, why not give it a shot? And I think that's the reason why I've decided to stand as well.
actually for me, I've been a volunteer for a very long time, 16 years. I thought that it's a bit of having an opportunity to represent people of our generation. I think many people of our generation are actually very busy, building careers, building families, and we are always listening to the policies and listening to what the government is doing. But actually, we are also Singaporeans. It's important that our voices are heard. And Singapore is built in a way that allows us to thrive.
Right.
Yeah, and I think there have been major changes globally, locally, in terms of how we think and how we have grown up and all these influences, and that needs to be reflected.
You both still have your full-time jobs. How's that like juggling? Like when you did the election, did you have to ask for leave? Did you have to tell your employers first? Like how did that work?
And your employer call your ma'am or what now?
Yeah, suddenly the power dynamics change.
Definitely needed to have a conversation with my employer before that. But, it's about working something out, and I'm very, very grateful that I had like forward-thinking employers and who were able to accommodate me. And no, they don't call me ma'am. I'm actually very much just like any other employee. I book my table before I go in. It's the same,
No privilege. Okay. Actually, it's street cred for them, I'm guessing as well.
Yeah. I think Max regret.
Because I've always had a very close relationship with my colleagues. So when they found out, it's like, oh wow, you're doing this. But I think they've known me for years. I actually spent 10 years teaching at NTU. It's quite hard to believe it that my first batch of students already have been in the workforce for quite some time, a decade. So of course they will start asking you, hey, what do you do in your job? How is it really like? You have friends who are, MPs. So those questions will still be there, but the dynamic hasn't really changed.
So some say that if you're not a full-time MP, the residents might be slightly shortchanged. I think it's come up before, especially during campaign season. Like, what you guys think that's fair?
I actually think that the full-time job allows me to keep in touch with what people are feeling in the workplace, what the people are feeling in the markets, the anxiety. These things are really unspoken of. I can deal with it, I can feel it from my colleagues and all that, and that really helps me stay grounded.
But that was the point, right?
Yeah.
The whole point was still be a member of society.
Especially now with the criticism being like, oh, MPs are a bit out of touch and whatnot. Like this actually is the opposite.
So for me also, because I teach in a university, so I'm in contact with the younger undergraduates, and you learn about how tough the job market really is. And in fact, some of students in the past that have lost their jobs recently, young PMETs, they're also struggling very much. So being in an Institute of Higher Learning allows me to be in touch with these feelings that our young people are facing. And so for me, in my current job, I am trying to help them manage that part of their career as well. So that feeds back into the policy aspect, because that is why we are voted into parliament for. Sometimes it's just to represent that voice, which is sometimes based on our profession.
Was Parliament what you expected it to be?
No, it's very quiet inside.
Oh,
I sit next to a member of the opposition.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, you cannot,
it's fixed seats.
It's fixed
Yeah,
seats.
it's fixed seats. It was appointed.
Yeah.
lah.
Yeah.
And
Obviously
enemies to
obviously.
lovers. No, as in from the election to now.
Yeah.
So what I didn't know was that outside the parliament room, there's actually some sweets. My neighbor offered me some sweets. So it's Jamus lah. Jamus offered me some sweets. I said, oh, where did you get this from? And then he said, oh, it's outside. So then from then on, we've been exchanging sweets.
Oh, so sweet.
Has there been something like strange or weird, right, that y'all have picked up, like be it like maybe a parliament habit or like something about how certain things are done that you've picked up since you joined politics?
Like you wanted to applaud and then realize, oh, everyone's doing this instead. Oh, sorry.
That did happen to me once, actually.
Like, yeah, woo, then after that speaker never call you for the next one.
No, I quickly, immediately changed my hands. Yeah.
But you
It did almost. It did. Always must remember to bow before you go in and exit, because you know that is a part of the ritual.
Then when
never
you go
catch it,
out, is it like that?
That was the Korean style.
Actually, how has your life changed since like winning the election?
Do you feel the pressure to constantly be like smiling, happy whenever like you can't just go to a coffee shop and just have a bad day? You
Like, I
know?
don't even dare to slouch, I think.
Yeah. Or like if your kids like you just need to like discipline a little bit. Like, you cannot even like hey, you know,
If
'cause
her
people are
child beats
watching.
someone else at the playground, she cannot shout at the child.
Yeah, like Dad, come back!
You be like, you want to come? You want to come? Okay, then I ask Daddy go and get you.
Yeah.
Then she go to the corner, So now if you are like walking around like in your constituencies, right, do people just go up to you and try to talk to you?
Yes.
But fun lah. It's quite fun also lah, right?
They see me, you're here. I might as well just tell you directly. But then there are also moments where they are like, come, we talk at a corner. I need to share something personal with you. So it varies quite widely. And I think more and more as people recognize you, they will take this opportunity when they see you on the ground and then they will share things with you. But the most difficult part for me was actually online. Because online, especially during the GE, right, there were opposing camps and people tend to speak very freely and raise their opinions online during the GE.
Yeah.
And you could just feel that those scathing remarks, sometimes they get into your head and you have to manage that part. So I think that's the part that was quite difficult. And honestly, I'm still learning to deal with it. So if you have any tips, please share with us, because you've been active online for quite some time.
Our
right?
tip is to
Still try one corner.
ignore. But you cannot ignore. That's literally your job.
And that's the problem, because some people with genuine concerns, they will share comments on our TikTok. And so I do try to force myself to read through the comments to make sure I don't lose those.
Speaking of online comments, I think there's often a sentiment that when it comes to new faces, particularly in the GRC system, they tend to, hop onto the back of like an anchor minister. Do you think that's a fair statement?
I may be a new face to some, but to many of the residents that I've worked with over the years, I'm not a new face.
Oh, you served in the GRC that you stayed in.
I didn't. There were changes in
But fairly close by, right?
Yes.
They were touching,
Yes.
if I'm not mistaken.
Yes,
Okay,
that's
okay.
right. Yeah. So
I don't think that helps though.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The two constituents.
we share a border.
Yeah.
Yeah. So because of that, actually, many of them have relatives who stay across, or so there's still some affinity there and relationship there. I think also that we need different roles within the GRC. Different people who bring different perspective. So me, I'm the only woman in my GRC. I'm also the youngest. So I think with that, I also bring different perspective to
Right.
the team and represent a different generation. Yeah.
Millennials.
I've been in Tampines for a year before I was running for elections. So I had the opportunity to befriend residents. I was really in doing MPS, house visits, organizing events. So I think there's this sense of familiarity. And I think voters do want that desire to be heard and cared for. And these aspects will give them a sense of what this person is really like, whether they
Right.
want to vote for this person. So I'm very lucky I had the opportunity to be there. And I hope that, in the next 5 years, I'll continue to be a familiar and trusted face on the ground, because we can't possibly meet everyone. It's actually impossible. And sometimes you hear that, I don't see my MP. And we want to provide more opportunities for people to come and see us. And we want to show that we are on the ground walking and we are accessible. And I think that's what all of us are striving to do in the next 5 years.
I think my perspective on this is that, while it's kind of true for the most part, I would believe, and I'm just guessing here, that most Singaporeans have never felt the need to go to an MPS because of, they're just born in better circumstance and then a bit lucky in life, got support. So they never had to go down to an MP to ask for help. And I think that is like 70%, I don't know. And for those people, they would see as that is, you are just riding on the coattail of your anchor minister. Because that's the truth. You have no other purpose to go and see your MP. You only see them in parliament and when they make speeches. And obviously the ministers are the one that make speeches. But that's where I think the 10% or 15% that really go down and ask for help and get the help, I think those people are voting differently.
That is true, not the majority will go down to meet the people sessions. So that's when the community events actually take a huge importance. So we organize activities for community members to come together and bond and also form that social support and feel like, someone in the community hears me and values me.
So there are two layers to this, right? We mentioned about a group of people that may not go down to MPS, but actually a lot of the work that the MP does may not require you to see him or her.
Yeah.
Yeah, like if they build a new sheltered linkway, because many of the residents wanted it for convenience, the MP actually has to fight for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but it's so hard for you to be grateful for that. I want to say, like as a Singaporean, right? When the MPs go out and say that, we built this overhead bridge, then I'm like, woman, that's your job. Or like, dude, that's your job. Or that's LTA's job. Like, it's very hard for me to feel grateful that my MP brought me this sheltered linkway. In a sense whereby, I think if I'm the one that wrote the letter, right, to say, hey, you think we could have a sheltered linkway? And then you're like, let me work on this. And then 6 months later, you come back, tada, sheltered linkway. Then I will be the most grateful person. But then when I tell my neighbor about it, she's like, gosh, they're just doing their job. Like, I like every time I see an MP go, we've upgraded the lift, then we're like, if not, what are you doing? You know what I'm saying?
But honestly, since the election, actually my estate improved a lot. Because I'm Jalan Kayu SMC, so he's been working very hard since the
Sir! This is when online comments actually work because you have so much hate, right? So he has to work doubly hard.
The branded content is this one.
Like all my benches change to new benches, like all spanking clean and everything. Then I have new murals and everything.
So what I'm hearing is the hate online actually works. More hate, please, no lah.
Hey,
Sorry.
I'm a bit curious, right? Maybe like for Cassandra. So something that you did talk quite a bit about during the election period and also after was advocating for young families. And I think one of your comments were actually taken and ran with on Reddit, where people were a bit upset or they feel that maybe you didn't understand what was the sentiment on the ground, and then you made certain comments to say now is the best time to start the family. Would you like to clarify, or is there anything that people are actually missing from what you are trying to say?
Yeah.
Do you regret saying that?
Many young people look forward to having families and having their own children. But many of them have also shared with me that they find it challenging. They don't feel so confident about raising children and giving the best to them. So if you look at the statistics from MSF as well, if you interview the youths between 21 and 34, how many of them, 70% of them are actually interested to have families and start a family, have children. But eventually the number that have children are much lower. So I think we should help them feel more confident. To be very honest, I read the comments and my heart felt very heavy after that. Because these pressures are real. These are real life stories of what we should be doing more of to help these families under pressure. Actually, I observed that in the last few years, the government have been doing quite a bit in terms of coming up with shared parental leaves, helping big families, and even doing childminding, piloting. Yeah. So because of that, I felt encouraged that this government is actually looking into this issue seriously. And they are actually trying to find out how best to help. In fact, at the start of this year, they mentioned that they are putting in 7 billion for financial year 2026, as opposed to 4 billion in 2020. So actually that's a commitment from the government. So I was encouraging the government to continue to do more, and we can put the policies to help where it hurts the most for young parents. Yeah.
Now, I want to ask you as a young, probably social media savvy person, when you say, I would think so lah. I mean, probably more savvy than the older folks lah. Like when you go on Parliament and you make a speech that this is the best time to start a family, right? Did you see it coming?
No.
Okay, I give you props for that.
No, but I feel like a lot of people saw the headline and didn't actually fully read like your statements, because I think you were actually quite empathetic to the struggles of parents, and as a parent, like, I really related. It's just that the headline then obviously took that one line which
you
said.
gave them the soundbite. That's the lesson, you know what I mean? Nothing wrong in the speech, but you gave media the soundbite.
I do also think that there's an issue because there's almost a pattern of people always defaulting to like, okay, but the root cause is not enough money, right? So whatever people are bringing up in Parliament, even when we had Min Shan on recently talking about the racial and religious interference, right? Essentially, when that statement came out, I thought people would be angry at what he said, but people were actually angry that he was talking about it, because they said, but what about all these other problems? And there were actually very similar comments that I saw on the Reddit thread, even regarding this starting a family thing. People just always default back to cost of living. But when you always go back to that, then do we not talk about every other issue?
I think the child problem is also in a sense whereby, not just as Singapore, I think as humanity, we don't want to sacrifice as much because we have been born into the good life, and we don't understand sacrifice as much. And so if my country tell me the TFR is low and I should do my part and make some babies, right? Like, I would think, then you pay for it. But throughout the history of humanity, right, there has never been an easy time to take care of children. Even if his money is not a problem, it's still a matter of getting the food, cooking the food, waking up in the middle of the night and all that stuff. It has always been difficult. Yeah. But I think humanity has changed in the sense whereby we don't want to, and myself included, that we simply don't want to sacrifice as much.
I would say the norm has changed. Yeah, in the past it was difficult, but everybody had our parents and grandparents, they all had 8 kids, 10 kids, right? But you were suffering, but everyone else was also suffering. Yeah. Whereas now, actually, if you go out there, many people are single. Many people are married without kids. So actually, you don't feel so it's not the norm to have children. And that's a worrying trend, actually. Yeah. If you look at Singapore 50 years from now, I'm not sure how many would be able to share that my grandparents or my great-grandparents came as first immigrants into Singapore. I'm not sure there are enough of us to tell that story anymore. Yeah.
Was there like a briefing, like when y'all won the election, right? When PAP won majority, was there like everybody come together? And then PM gave a briefing and say, like, in my term, I would like this.
There was a letter, right? From PM to all the MPs.
So you're ready same time as the rest of us?
Yeah. Oh. You see that you also tell you to speak up. And in fact, on your question, one of my residents asked me the same thing. I went door knocking and he asked me, how are you going to influence the policy as MP? So actually, what you see in Parliament is only half of what happens. Behind the doors, actually, we are also asking amongst our more senior colleagues and all the POHs, we say, actually I've received a lot of feedback about this policy. Why is it done this way? Have you considered this? Yeah. So actually we do have those conversations as well, yeah.
So then maybe I can ask, right, I guess for both of you as first-time MPs, how much can you all actually influence policy or make a difference in that sense?
first of all, when we do the Meet the People sessions, we do get ground feedback. When we go to house visits, we also hear a lot of feedback from people who fall through the cracks, or there are some gaps in policy which are not sufficient to meet certain needs. And that's when we use those inputs as question. We pose them in the forms of questions to Parliament and discuss them and debate them in Parliament. And that's when the speeches come in. And hopefully there will be some changes. And I must admit, change does not happen overnight, because just to design policies and to make sure that they work is a long process sometimes. And because these will be implemented as policies, so we can't just make changes quickly and take them lightly. There must be some consideration of what are the side effects of policies, what are some constraints that the government might face. And that's why when we debate policy in Parliament, it is with the hope that it will lead to positive outcomes for our residents, and we must never lose sight of the people that we serve in Singapore.
Is it scary to ask questions when you know that the minister that you're asking a question is part of the same party? Do you feel like, I cannot make it too difficult? Like some people feel like wayang also. Like
Some people feel like it's pre-planned.
Yeah.
I'm convinced half is pre-planned, is it not?
Like I say this, then you help me ask this.
Correct. I think like Eun Jin asked about like something about like the LTA stuff to like Minister Sun Xueling, and after that everyone was just like wayang. Like they don't believe that it was like really a genuine question. Like
Can we hear it from the young people, the truth?
I definitely didn't tell anybody. In fact, I was writing when it was happening. Then I was like, raise my hand. Can you pick me, please, Mr. Speaker?
Oh, it's not. It's like this one.
Oh, I thought it's like preordained.
So if those of you who have studied abroad before, it's like the Western classroom where everybody raises their hand and tries to fight for a chance to speak.
It's the class part. Class part.
Yes,
Yeah.
or
We
like
never
when
see
you
that,
have class
yeah.
part. Yes, correct.
Do you actually raise your hand? Or is that a button?
Raise your hand.
I've never seen a hand raised.
And then
it's like, wow,
somebody's
very
blocking
fast.
you. You must like try to get your face.
You don't see the backbenchers, you only see the ministers in front.
That's opposite to me. That one is I avoid the eye contact.
Yeah. Because on camera, you only see the ones that answer the questions. The backbenchers.
Yeah.
So then actually this question needs to be asked to speaker.
Correct. Actually, we
So
should
it's
be
very
more.
important speaker knows your name. If you forget your name,
He would just be like the member from Jurong.
no, not that one.
That one harder to remember. There's this term thrown out a lot, right? That we need to toe the party line.
Yeah.
For me personally, I haven't really felt that way thus far. Okay. In fact, we've been encouraged to share our perspective. And that's the whole point of having us in Parliament and introducing so many new faces, right? It's because we all come from different backgrounds, different professions, and we have different experiences. And that's when we can provide fresh perspectives. And I think so far we've been encouraged to show that expertise that we have in Parliament through the questions that we ask.
So then, like as an MP, how often is there a feeling of helplessness? Because I think, we see very real problems, but some of these problems are very individual also. And, we want to help the individual doesn't mean that I'm going to make a whole policy out of this. And in order to get a policy to the point where it is now enacted, that also could be a very long process. And in the meantime, you are continuously seeing people come to you with these very real issues, right? Yeah, what's that like?
When we see enough of a sizable group of people coming with the same problem issue, I think that's when you start seeing trends, and then you realize that maybe the policy needs to be tweaked. And I think that is a little bit of a judgment call, but across the board, it's just not only you as an MP, but multiple MPs are raising the same issue. That's when real change needs to happen, and we will raise it in Parliament.
So it's on us to go and think of ways to help them, not just to relieve the symptoms immediately, but to also bring them permanent change. Yeah.
But also the personal struggle is real, right? For you.
Yeah, to be able to, because you empathize with your resident and the challenges they're facing, but at the same time, you also know that these policies are drafted in a certain way because they have different considerations. How do you gel the two? And we're standing right in the middle. We carry the weight on both sides to spend taxpayer monies responsibly. So yeah, it's very tough.
Right. I can imagine.
Actually, Daniel had an earlier point, right? Do you feel the pressure to prove yourself? The pressure to prove yourself is something that's not as real as the moral obligation you have to your residents, because now you're voted into this position, they trusted you, and it's really that obligation to do right by them. That is the thing that I feel weighs quite heavily on me.
Especially younger MPs and new MPs, especially every day when you hear heart-wrenching stories or whatnot, right? And people asking for help as they do when they come to MPS, you would feel like can I just give you $500? Like, you know what I mean? Like as an employer, I feel that way. Because sometimes if like Denise comes to me with a family problem and like my mom needs surgery, it's easier for me to say, why don't I give you the money? As opposed to, can you hit this KPI? Then I increase your salary. Then I give you this bonus. Then at the end of the year, I'll just give you the money from my own pocket because it's easier. But I'm private sector. I would imagine as people loving humans, and that's why you're in public service, that y'all have this heart as well. But if you start this precedent, there's no way you can finance Singapore. Or like a GRC. Like, do y'all struggle with that?
Actually, many residents who come and see us would not like that. Even if they need money, they don't want you to give them money.
So you try, is what you're saying.
No.
Suddenly there's one person that no one would love money.
They want to actually either get into the system, meaning benefit from that policy, or they want to earn it themselves. For example, I'm looking for a job. I want a job. I'm not looking for a handout.
No, but actually it's quite interesting because there are a lot of instances in which like people who actually really need like temporary relief are told that actually MSF or Comcare has like avenues, and then they're like, actually no, there's too much pride actually sometimes, and it takes a long time to finally realize, okay, actually these are all the different avenues. Temporary, short term is this, and then long term is this for them to actually. So I can understand like what you mean by like sometimes they just don't want a handout even.
Are there specific things that for the both of you, right, that you are trying to move the needle on?
So for me is mental health. I'm a huge believer of building resilience before you actually really need it. So what I mean is basically for our young people, it's important to help them manage some of these issues from young and repeatedly flex that muscle, because resilience is not just about bouncing back, it's about bouncing forward. And that means that you need to keep practicing and flexing this muscle so that when the trigger event or stressor comes, right, you can immediately practice what you've learned, and it's like second nature, it becomes a habit. So I think it's very important for us to help our children, whether in schools, at home, manage some of these emotions and feelings they might experience growing up. And it's also very developmental. At different life stages, they experience different challenges. So I think the key is to tailor some of these to developmental stages, make sure that we give simple rules and not overcomplicate matters.
Into curriculum?
Yeah, whether it's curriculum, whether it is activities that we provide in the community, whether it's at home. I think the tricky thing now is we have so much information overload. As a first-time parent, I was online reading my Sassy Mom and reading all these different resources just to figure out what is the right thing to do. But I think at the end of the day, it boils down to simplifying things, marketing them well so that people will be able to catch the message and repeatedly practice so that it becomes second nature. I think that's what I hope to move the needle on.
Did this issue, I guess, like grow on you during your stint as like a police psychologist?
Hey,
Nice one.
Yeah.
So yes, during my days in police, it was a really great first job, I must say. I really started seeing the unseen emotional labor in our police officers, and that was what struck me the most in the job, because as police psychologists,
you are the psychologist for the police. My bad.
yes.
I don't know why. I thought it was for someone else.
So often people always confuse between prison and police psychologists.
Right.
So we tend to focus more on the police officers. We try to enable them to do their job better. I mean, psychologically. And so it was a very good first job. I remember we had to go on stints. We had attached to CID. We had patrol on the ground. We even had to go to a morgue, I remember, because we basically had to experience what the police officers face on the ground. And oftentimes it's like tragedy, conflict, trauma. And we had to understand their operations in order to help bolster their mental resilience. And so that was a key part of my job. So my idea of mental resilience really came from that first job, seeing the unseen emotional labor in our officers.
It's interesting you mentioned that because we went for Stephen Bartlett speaking tour, and he mentioned about this muscle. And when you kept saying flexing muscle, I know that you mean it figuratively, but there's an actual muscle in the brain.
The something anterior cingulate cortex or something. Mid and sing.
Yeah, that apparently physically grows as you do things that you don't want to do, so that you build your actual like resilience and grit. Which apparently people born after 1990s have a much smaller version of compared to previous generations.
Then do you all like yourselves go for therapy because you're also taking on a lot of grief and
That's
trauma dumps?
seeing Charlene once a month clown.
Then who do you see?
So actually, Herbie, the people very crowded.
Even
Everybody has different ways to relax and wind down. I like taking walks. I went for this thing called forest bathing. I don't know if you all heard
Forest
about
bathing?
it. I went with some of our residents to do this thing called forest bathing. And it's this idea that when you be with nature, you can wind down, relax. Nature gives off emits this kind of chemical that actually relaxes your brain.
Right.
Yeah.
So you just go stand around or what?
We walk around, then there are moments where we sit down, we share with each other thoughts about our lives, how it's stressful, how do we wind down.
Then you share with your residents the stresses of your life.
I don't share, of course, stories that I hear on the ground, but rather things that, probably affected my mood today.
Right.
And, how do you jump back from it? What do you do to feel better, but also what actions do you take to, proactively meet these challenges in your life?
That's an interesting balancing act because you kind of want to be relatable, but you don't want to show that my MP is falling apart and there's like...
Very hard
It's
to
like,
strike the balance.
we love her, so we don't vote her. She need a break.
Actually, very interesting because I've been looking at some of like your research papers, right? And they are just so like mind-blowingly interesting. And to even think about like this is the premise that we want to test for, right? Because I think like there was one where you looked into how when people feel like they have low control environments, they tend to buy cleaning products. They tend to buy like hedonistic products or something along those
Actually,
lines.
I got asked that question a lot during the pandemic. Why did people rush to buy toilet paper during the pandemic? So I think the key was they wanted to understand how my research speaks to that question. So do you all want to know why
Yes.
people buy
Yes.
toilet paper?
Because they don't have bidet.
Yeah, because there's this sense of scarcity, right? And anxiety, right? That when you need it, you don't have it. When people saw other people rushing to buy, there was this sense that it's going to run out. And during a pandemic situation, when things are out of your control, you just want to restore your sense of control. And that's when your herd instincts come in because you think that if everybody must be doing it, maybe that's the right thing to do. So back to the utilitarian thing, when you feel a loss of control, you want to problem solve. And enjoyment is sometimes the last thing on your mind. So you just want to make sure that you have the tools that you need, what you need, when you need it.
So
Okay.
you're saying that if say during the start of the pandemic, I gathered 10 friends to go to different supermarket and bulk buy ketchup bottles, and then I
You
just
can manufacture the scarcity.
and then people will just go and chiong and buy ketchup bottles, you think?
I think that one I better not anyhow say. Like, this one,
I agree. I think to a certain extent, right, it was the news outlets that made it happen. Because I for one use bidet, so my toilet paper very slow one. I buy one time and it lasts for months one. But when during the pandemic, everybody's buying, and it's not like I also feel like I need toilet paper to survive. But it's just, but what if we run out? So I just go down and buy 2 rolls.
So how do you then decide like what to research? Because like I would think in the many, many years that science has existed, or at least the scientific process has existed, there have been a million people that have decided I'm going to test this. How is there still things to test and research?
That's a very good question. A question that I ask myself every day. What else can I do research on? But I think a lot of my research also boils down to things I observe on the ground. And as we enrich our experiences, talking to different people, then these ideas come to you. So for example, recently I'm more interested in inequality. So I've been doing a lot of research on that. And I think the key is that a lot of people, when they think about inequality, it's about Gini coefficients. But how people experience it in real life is very different. It's not in numbers and figures. It's really about the lived experience of observing different social class signals in your environment. And I think that is what we need to think about when it comes to policy making. Sure, we do need redistributive policies. We do need to uplift the lower end of society, but we also need to manage how people respond and react to some of these different social class signals that we observe in our everyday life.
Same question to Cassandra as well, right? What is one thing that you're hoping to move the needle on?
Well, I'm hoping that we can strengthen families in Singapore, because actually when I do house visits and all that, I see that our families are being pulled in different directions. Many of our seniors are actually living alone more than ever. Their children are also feeling very stressed out. Some of them due to work, some of them due to raising children or cost of living. And then the youth are also a little bit isolated because they grew up in a different era where, Gen Z or digital, they grew up with digital gadgets all around them. It's part of life. It's inherent. Everybody is growing up experiencing a different Singapore. How do you let them still come together so that the family stays intact? And I think another area that I'm very interested in that is very related to this is technology. How do we ensure that technology helps us and become a force of good rather than tear us apart? Yeah. So there's a lot of talk about online safety now. How do we make sure that the online space is safe for our children?
Can I ask you a question then? Because if I'm not wrong, it's in Korea that they are actually now taking away like kids' phones when they go to school. Yeah. Do you think that is helpful? Or like in the future of Singapore, might we see something like this? Do you think that might be a good way to move in?
It's a very difficult question. To be honest, even if you come up with a rule, there needs to be a lot of enforcement on the ground. How do you enforce it? Is also another question. Yeah, so it's very, very problematic. And I think every country sort of needs to find their own balancing solution to that. In Singapore, we tend to take the more balanced approach. We don't want to go to either extremes. And I personally would not support that for Singapore because I think it would require a lot of resources to enforce it. And we need to think carefully about what we are forcing underground.
When you say enforcement, all I'm hearing is job creation. We will have more safety ambassadors.
I was thinking about body search.
I was,
The problems that will bring.
I was hearing the US is already set up for this.
Yeah, they've got like metal detectors now when you have to go to school. It's not really a life that people want to live, I guess.
Something that I'm a bit curious about for Cassandra, because we talked about one of the earlier jobs that Charlene had, right, was that you were actually involved in like negotiations for Singapore's free trade agreements previously.
So cool.
Like what does that look
I
like?
always wondered, like, when these free trade agreements happen, especially between like larger countries, right? Like Singapore does have a seat at the table, but I think the reality is that we don't have an equal voice or weight of voice, especially with larger markets. Is it awkward? Like, how does this thing happen? How do we ask for things?
Actually, what's really interesting is that many countries are very open and willing to listen to Singapore when we speak because they recognize that Singapore has a system that works well and we're able to value add. Even though we're so small, they value our inputs.
Right.
Yeah, so we contribute in our own way. Maybe we can't give them, the largest export numbers in this area, but maybe we can contribute in terms of other experiences. Yeah.
It begs the question, what's Singapore's leverage? This like what's the one bargaining chip that Singapore has?
I think a lot of times we also have to think about how do we be relevant to the other countries. So to the bigger countries who have no qualms or no need to pay attention to us.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is that, hey, look, US, Southeast Asia is a huge, huge market for you guys. We speak your language. We can kind of shepherd everybody to kind of... So it's almost like you're speaking on behalf. Like you are the proxy for everybody else. I would think that's the relevance for one country. And then for another, it could be investment. For another, it could be we are hub
So like
for you
to
guys.
FTA with the US in the first place.
Yeah.
The heck they want? Like what are we giving that they need?
That's why you have to probably represent an entire region.
That's why that one was very hard to negotiate.
And then suddenly now it's poof. Don't know whether it's relevant anymore.
Which makes more sense to me now. Like you look at like Trump's policy making, it's childish, but I mean, sorry, not they say, I say,
But it makes sense though.
Yeah, but it makes sense.
It makes sense for them.
Yeah.
Because for too long, they've been putting too much resources in a way that they don't benefit.
Yeah.
Was there like certain examples or like funny stories from like these negotiations? Like maybe there was a certain country that was very harped up on a certain detail, for example.
Like mangoes? Like why mangoes?
Well, I'm sure there are countries with specific interest in certain fruits, but I think actually I saw a difference between smaller countries and bigger countries. it is really different in the way that their policies are run. Some smaller countries that I met, they are very, very open to trade. And I think that's because they recognize they need that. And also, there are also countries that are very far away from us, but I found a lot of similarities with them. So for one, actually, my first trip was to Peru. And in Peru, it was very far away, right? I mean, we had to spend how many hours in air to get there. But when I reached there, the people there were so warm. And what struck me was that the chair was a female and her whole team was made out of many females. And then I said, I just realized that your whole team as an organizing chair is made out of many females. She said, yes, in Peru, it's very important for us. Gender equality is a big thing for us, and women can do it too. And I thought, that's very interesting.
Okay, so with that, I think we've come to a good point to close the episode. A big thank you to Charlene and Cassandra for joining us today. We enjoyed getting to know you better, and I hope that you got to know them better as well. Like, share, subscribe, comment down below if anything. Maybe they'll go and answer. Or now they are forced to. Now that I said it.
No, we send them.
We'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.